So here I am with Aarron Schwartz. This guy and I have known each other for a couple of years, but worked together and really spent a lot of life together. So it's a great privilege to be able to interview him and ask him these questions related to ministry. Not only do I look up to him as a friend and a brother, I also look up to him as a pastor and a ministry leader of many. So I think this was the first person that I thought of when I was asked to do this. So here we are, and this is Aarron, pastor of Restoration Church in Nashville, Tennessee. And how long have you been there?
16 years this fall.
Yep, and planted the church from the very beginning. 16 years, that's incredible.
It is a long time.
So we're here today to talk about leadership and talk about some very pointed and specific things related to leadership. And so we'll go ahead and just cut to the chase and get to the beginning of this. So first question is this. Aarron, how do you personally define leadership?
The way I would define leadership, to put it, this is a little bit nebulous, but I would say having a vision of a destination or a preferred outcome that you see and you're helping other people see and implement steps to get to. So I think while there are a lot of people who really like the idea of being in leadership because they like the idea of control, they're in between what you see and where the people are is a lot of pain and struggle. So I think leadership, if I'm defining it, is, especially in ministry, is God giving you a vision and then you meeting people where they are to help get them to the place that God has given you a vision for.
Well, another question. What are the most important practical lessons that you can share with me? Maybe things that no one told you about ministry leadership.
Oh my gosh, that could take days, but I would say probably read the question again, because I want to hear it again and make sure
Most important practical lessons, things that no one told you about.
I think the biggest part was that the vast majority of my job would involve administration and stuff that doesn't seem to directly relate to ministry. I think that would be the biggest thing. When I went to seminary, so much of what I was learning was theory, and you can create the perfect church in your head, but as soon as it's on the ground, you're constantly dealing with others' expectations, your own expectations of yourself, and trying to implement that in a fallen world is very difficult. So I would say I would have taken far more administrative classes.
So do you have that maybe a piece of advice for somebody who is just stepping into a role of ministry leadership?
I think depending on the kind of ministry you're going into, if you're going into church leadership, and we did hear all the time, take business classes, but really that was more like a don't burn the ships kind of thing. Hey, take business classes so that if ministry doesn't work out, you can do business. And then there were certainly people that were take business classes so that you can better administrate your church. But I would say you want stewardship, not business, which is within the vision and values of ministry, not like creating a ministry off of business practices. So I think I would say take administrative classes along with, or administrative training, or work with people who are strong in those areas, so that you can understand the everyday aspects of ministry. Like being in a church and actually, there were quite a few people that I served, that I went to school with, that weren't even serving in a church. And so how in the world are you going to take those ideal concepts and put them on the ground if you're not even serving in a church?
So learn from somebody who's in the role.
Learn from somebody who's in the role, not just ministry. Teachers are great, but if I'm being honest, many of those teachers are teachers because they don't want to work in a local church. So they're brilliant, I'm not saying that, but I am saying sometimes it gets detached from the actual grind of ministry every day of working with people.
Absolutely. So before I ask this third question related to books, do you think that you could probably put together a book of all the things you wish you had learned in seminary?
Yes.
At this point, you've been in ministry how many years?
30 something years, over 30 years.
Absolutely. Of course, I look back to my years in youth ministry. I can't believe all the things that I didn't know, even at this point in my life. So I can't even imagine being in a lead pastor role, all the things. So I think it would, honestly, I think it'd be valuable. I don't know that
I've actually thought about writing something that was all the mistakes I've made.
There you go.
And what I learned from, because you just can't know until you're in it. You just can't. I don't care what anyone tells you. From church planning perspective, I've argued it'd be great for us not only to do training on the front end, but let's make a mandatory 1 year in or 2 year in, because you don't know the questions to ask until you're on the ground. And not every church is the same either. So
absolutely. So I think there you go, man. Just write a book on it. That could be your retirement.
I need more work. Go ahead.
All right, the next one. What biblical books are you reading right now?
Biblical, as in books of the Bible.
Yeah, I guess it could be books about the Bible or books about maybe a particular.
Pretty much all I read are, as far as from a biblical standpoint, are commentaries.
Commentaries? What commentaries?
It depends on the book. My favorite commentary series is Word Biblical because it has such an incredible bibliography. So if there's an expert in the field, it's going to most likely be in Word Biblical. So you can take, if you see something you're really interested in, you can take and then go to their work and follow up there. But as far, I know this probably isn't great, but I try not to secondhand my sermons. I want scholarship based on critical commentaries.
Sure.
So sometimes that can be to a fault where I'm not taking the time to learn from others in pastoral roles, but I like going straight to commentaries.
That's good. Hard copy or digital?
Hard copy. I use digital, but I prefer hard copy.
Yeah. All right. What do you think the biggest challenge that faces you as a ministry leader?
For me, it would probably be the separation of personal walk with ministry, because I often feel the need to take everything I get personally and give it to ministry. So as a communicator and a preacher, when the Lord teaches me something, I feel like every bit of that has to go into church, and it doesn't. I'm learning that. And so learning what to keep for myself, that the Lord said, I want you to keep that for you, and what I use in minute, because otherwise what happens is your personal life becomes, your personal walk becomes all about fodder for ministry, and then you don't have that separation and that intimate walk. You have, your walk is for ministry, and that's not a healthy thing at all.
I got you.
It's that is very hard, at least for me it is.
Maybe that kind of leads to the next, I'll skip to this question. It says, how do you separate yourself effectively from work to rest?
I have to physically get away. If I'm local, then I feel the need, if anything goes wrong, somebody loses an arm, whatever, hopefully not, but I feel the need to be, if I'm anywhere near the area, so I have to get away. I have to get away from social media for, I think there's use for it, and I use it on a regular basis, but I think shutting off certain aspects to just say, I don't need to be this accessible.
No, that's important, obviously. I mean, it's very important. I think it really follows on what you just said. It's definitely a challenge, to say the least.
And on another note, I had to learn how to disappoint people, and I'm not good at that. I feel guilty, and then that ends up, I bear the brunt of that, and my family bears the brunt of that, and then cyclically, it also affects the ministry, so everybody loses.
All right, change course a little bit. Think about this question. What sources do you use to study and consult for ministry engagement?
Pearl of Great Price. No, I'm kidding. for ministry engagement? I'm sorry, I was making a dumb joke again.
What sources do you use to study and or consult
for ministry engagement? I think if I'm hearing the question right, the best resource I've had was Concentric Circles of Concern, that book that I read many years ago, and I feel like that has been the template for my understanding of ministry engagement, which is all about relationships and love is meeting needs.
Obviously,
but I love that book.
Because I know you. I knew that was your answer.
Did you?
I did. So did Paige. So she totally.
That's hilarious.
It was pretty funny. So, what other arenas of leadership do you look to learn from?
I would say probably where I'm most, two things. I think from a communication standpoint, I try not to listen to preachers when it comes to communication, because I feel like it's kind of an inbred feedback loop that you see trends in the way people communicate that is different a lot of times in the church than it is at large. And I feel like I learn more by listening to people who are not in a church context, because it challenges me more. I feel like I already know where people are going a lot of times within a church context. So a TED Talk or a way in which somebody's communicating outside that sub-context, to me, is more challenging and helpful than listening to people who are quote-unquote good at preaching. So there was a second part of that question.
Sources do you use to study? Or wait, no, that was previous question. What other arenas of leadership do you look to learn from?
Oh, so yeah, that's it. Because there was another question I think I was skipping ahead to that I was thinking of, but that I would say that's how I would answer it.
Any networks or anything like that that are important to you?
I've got two pastors that's a good question. Two pastors that I meet with that are obviously not part of our church that I love that because they're objective. They don't have a problem speaking hard truth. but with kindness. And they'll help me work through things that are difficult from a leadership, because they're both in leadership and they can help me see things that I don't see.
Yep.
They're incredibly helpful.
Anybody maybe outside of the church that's not maybe a ministry leader that you would take advice from?
No, I think the way I look at it is gold no matter whose pocket it's in. So if I've got somebody I feel like is a strong leader, and let's say it's a coach, and I look at that coach and I see what they're doing, and that may be from afar. It may not be that I'm directly talking to the person, but I'm looking at them going, I see what they've got that works, and I want to learn from that.
Yep.
So a lot of that may be from afar where I'm not actually meeting with the person. But there are certainly people I might ask a question to in passing. But most of the people that I'm connected to on a regular basis are going to be pastors. Because there is a specific aspect of pastoral ministry that's different, that is not a business and is not the same values. So it may affect my decision making.
I get that, dude, for sure. Larry, I think one last question. If you could go back and change anything at all in your journey to this point, what would that be? If that's anything.
I would say this is something I've definitely thought about. I think probably what I would have done, had a model when we started restoration of wanting to be the first man through the wall, of showing people that I wasn't above serving. Because I had been part of churches where the pastors were set apart and they weren't doing the things that the people were doing. So I'm not going to ask anyone to do something I wouldn't do, basically. But in doing so, I feel like I took on, especially because I also felt guilt over being the only person that was paid when we first started. So anytime there was something that needed to be done, it was like, I'll do that. I still have this problem to a degree. Rather than saying, oh, you're gifted to do that, you want to do that, I don't need to feel guilt over that. I need to rejoice over the fact that you want to do that. I would say that was definitely an issue in the beginning, where I felt guilt anytime people were doing something hard instead of going, no, I'm going to let them do their thing. And in doing so, that not only started burning me out, but it made them feel irrelevant. They didn't matter. And I think that's still something that I want to solve. I don't want that to be the case. So I feel like I've improved in that area, but it's still like, it feels almost like a default that I keep coming back to. So my initial response is, I'll do that. So it's almost like I'm not sitting and even thinking about it. And then I have to go back and go, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't be doing that.
No, I think that's just our nature as general, but obviously it's something that's really important for us to see and understand. I think that's a great way to close this out, really, to think about these things specifically. This isn't all about me. This isn't all about my calling or my job, basically. This is a group of people that are gifted in many different ways, and they're called to be a part of this just like you are. And so it's like, I think, and I too personally struggle with that. It's just going, all right, let somebody else do what it is that they've been called to do, trusting that God is allowed.
And then you have to be okay with the fact that they're doing it differently than you would do it. Sometimes it's not great, and you have to help them get to that point, or you don't, and it's okay. Sometimes it's just okay for it to be a 7 rather than a 9, or even a 5 or 6.
To me, that's what leadership is. It's letting people step into a role. It's not necessarily always being the person that does it, but maybe walking alongside one who is. So I think that's a really valid point.
A lot harder than it seems.
They don't teach you that in seminary.
Well, it's like for me, I go back and forth between two extremes, which is throw them in the deep end, because I'm the kind of person that I want somebody to just give me the role and I'll figure it out, right? And micromanaging. So when I get stressed out, I hover and I freak out. Is this going to be, because it feels like an indicator of my own leadership. So I tend to bounce between these two extremes, and learning how to do, we were just discussing this the other day, is coaching classes. So valuable for ministry, because they teach you how to help someone own their faith and their decision making, and learn how to hear from the Spirit for themselves. So how do I learn how to coach alongside rather than dictate, which is micromanaging, or abandon, which is a complete hands off? So
that's awesome. Well, man, there's a lot more we could talk about, but I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate you answering these questions. And
sure.
I'm sure that this is very valuable for me, obviously not just an assignment, but hopefully this gave you some food for thought to think about as you proceed forward and seeking after the Lord and all He's got in store for you. So awesome. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, Dan.